Two Protestant churches are taking some heat for opening their church buildings to Muslims needing a place to worship because their own facilities were either too small or under construction.
Some see it as a Christian duty. Others disagree. We're back with Governor Huckabee with more on this. So is this counter run against everything these churches stand for?
Well, you know, as much as I respect the autonomy of each local church, you just wonder, what are they thinking? I mean, if the purpose of a church is to push forth the gospel of Jesus Christ, and then you have a Muslim group that says that Jesus Christ and all the people who follow him are a bunch of infidels who should be essentially obliterated, I guess I have a hard time understanding that. I mean, if a church is nothing more than a facility and a meeting place free for any and all viewpoints without regard to what it is, then should the church be rented out to show adult movies on the weekend? I mean, where does this end? How far does it go? I think the church facility, dedicated and paid for by people for the purpose of the gospel and the mission of the gospel, ought to be somehow given at least a semblance of consistency with its intention.
Now, you're not likening Islam to pornography.
No, I'm sure that some bloggers will say that, and I'll read 300 blog accounts that will say that by noon today. But I'm just saying that if you're going to have a facility dedicated for a purpose, in this case the worship of Jesus Christ, is there a reason to say that the people who donated, who gave, who sacrificed to give that facility really ever intended it to be a place where something that is the antithesis of the gospel of Christ would be presented?
Well, these Muslim groups have nowhere else to worship. They're maybe building a mosque in some situations at the time. So isn't it in the spirit of the church and the gospel to help out these people when they're in need?
Well, you know, if a church needs a place, they rent one. They find a place. It may be a public place. They go to I am a member of a church that started in a hotel banquet room 15 years ago with 25 people. Now has 6,000 people a weekend. But it started in a hotel. It moved to a storefront. Then it moved to a warehouse. And it eventually built its own facility. So, you know, I guess I'm not as sympathetic with my own understanding of that a church is a group of people. It's not the building. But if the building has been built, dedicated, and set aside for a specific purpose, something that is inconsistent with the purpose. I don't see a problem having a civic club meeting or something, but we're talking different when you have a faith that believes that all who don't adhere to that specific faith are infidels.
And mosques have increased by 57% in America since the year 2000. One thing I'm curious about, just from your perspective, one of the churches said that it was their Christian duty. It wasn't that they needed to rent the space out, but it was a Christian duty. Is that?
I guess I've never understood that. My Christian duty is to love my neighbor as myself. It doesn't mean to give my home or to my place of worship to something, to worship something and someone other than Jesus. I think my Christian duty is to say, let me introduce you to my Christian faith and to Jesus Christ. That would be the Christian duty, as I understand the Christian duty.
Coming up later today, of course, Governor Huckabee going to be reading all those blog posts a little bit later today.
Just ignore them.
But also...